Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jerry Hicks, also known as the Dark Wolf, and I am, of course, the host of the DarkWolf's Den Radio Show. Before we get started, please rise for the playing of the national anthem. Radio show. Before we get started, please rise for the playing of the national anthem.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Things are better left unknown, and I'll never find you here, 'cause no one's ever Oh, what a widow, a peaceful spider. When the glass is clean, she's a sneaky hider. Hide the lies and the alibis. Oh, what a sinner is it in her? What's the truth in this riddle? Is love really just this simple? I can't seem to find my way in this world that never stays. What a widow, a peaceful spider. When the glass is clean, she's a sneaky hider. Hide the lies and the alibis. What a sinner is it in her? Is this real? Just illusion? I'm lost in the wonderland of confusion. I'm lost in the wonderland of confusion. Is this real or just illusion? Manifestation or a dark delusion? Is this real or just illusion? I'm lost in a wonderland of confusion.
Rippin' Rabbit Hole is a community-driven radio. At times the community comments may reveal prejudices and other beliefs that we or our sponsors do not condone. Views or opinions expressed by the community, callers, or guests, are those of the individual speaking and do not represent the views or opinions of this site. Rippin' Common Sense content is intended for mature audiences only. Enjoy.
Coming to you from a secret cave, hidden deep within the wilderness. This is the Darkwolf's Den Show. Now, here is your host, Jerry Hicks.
Today... That's right, I am Jerry Hicks, also known as the Dark Wolf, and we are broadcasting live from a secret cave hidden deep within the wilderness of Tennessee. That's right, we're ripping through the electromagnetic soup, we're tearing through the atmosphere, and we're tunneling away into your radio like a quantum particle. This is the Darkwolf's Den Radio Show for Thursday, April the 28th, 2022. So whether you're on the edge of a reality, the edge of the galaxy, or the edge of your seat, we're glad you chose us to be right there with you. Folks, tonight we are diving deep down the rabbit hole of the great state of Virginia. A deep, dark rabbit hole indeed, and one that we are really nearing the end of our series with, one that's going to be very enjoyable, that I can say for sure. And before we do get into that, let's see who all we have out here in our YouTube chat rooms, both on the Rippin' Rabbit Hole as well as the Darkwolf's Den Show YouTube channel. Great to see everybody tonight. Who all we got here? We got Sandy B checking in on the Darkwolf's Den Show channel. Glad to see you, Sandy B, hanging out with the tunes. That's right. Darius Munchausen says, "Hail Jerry." Hail Darius. Guys, I got a question real quick. Did you guys get the notifications that the show went live? Now, I know that I got the notification from the Rippin' Rabbit Hole channel. I don't get my own notifications, of course, so I don't know if you guys are getting the channel notifications on my channel or not. I'd really love to know that out there in the chat. Sandy B, Darius Munchausen, My Life DIY hanging out also over in the Darkwolf's Den Show says, "I'm here, was just sharing it out." We appreciate you sharing it out everywhere. My Life DIY, always a pleasure to see you, Sandy B. Also, the first in the Rippin' Rabbit Hole chat room, at least according to my screen, says, "I can't wait to hear what sea serpents are in Virginia. There may or may not be a sea serpent in Virginia. We will have to wait and see." Ha ha, Raider Champion. So there have been multiple sightings of Loch Ness monsters in Williamsburg. Oh, has there now? That is interesting. Maggie's Aces, hi, Dark. Hi, Maggie's, great to see you. As well as Prairie Fire. Who else? Lobo, Ohio, always a pleasure to see you, my friend, Mr. Lobo, checking in. It's been a little while. Glad to see you are back around with us. Darius Munchausen checking in over here at the Rippin' Rabbit Hole. Says the stream ended over there, so I came over here. Yeah, the stream does that from time to time. You just got to refresh the page. YouTube don't like us, and it doesn't matter what we put out. YouTube does not like letting us put out anything, really. I'm surprised they let these shows go as much as they do, but that's what happens when you call out the enemy. They tend to mess with your channel. If you have any issues like that, guys, ever, remember, just refresh the page. It usually comes right back. Man, Danny Mull checking in says, yes, got both notifications. Raider says he got the notification. Darius Munchausen, I got no notification for both channels. Excellent, excellent. I am really glad to hear that they are actually going out, because I do believe in the break AJ may be announcing something kind of awesome that happened to us here at Rippin' Common Sense Radio Network. So definitely stick around, looking forward to that, guys. And we throw it back to the studio, and AJ the Rabbit over there at break time. Michael Fontaine checking in also. Glad to see you, Michael. Michael says, let's go, Brandon. All right, I can't say that I disagree with that, but there you go, Michael Fontaine. It's a pleasure hanging out with you guys once again on a Thursday night, kicking this weekend off right, guys? And whether you are hanging out over on YouTube or listening around the world on Rippin' Common Sense Radio Network at the rippinrabbithole.com, or of course on the BitChute or Rumble channels over there on demand, we're glad to have every last one of you guys along for the ride. That's right. And before we do dive deep down into this rabbit hole that is the state of mystery of Virginia, we of course have two more fun little segments to do, the first of which we call Today in History. You guys know I really love it when we can line up a Today in History with the state we're doing, and just by chance, this is one of those days. Check it out. On this day in 1635, the Virginia governor John Harvey is accused of treason and removed from office. It sounds similar to something we may, or I would like to see happen in our near future here. Anyways, folks, that occurred to the Virginia governor on this day in 1635, and that is today's segment of Today in History.
Say what?
Okay, guys, I have a very special quote of the day today. This comes from author Gina Showalter in her fiction book, Animal Instincts. However, I do think it's very fitting. Listen up, ladies. This is for you, my female audience. Check it out. Here are 10 things you ladies shouldn't say on a date. Number 1, you're wearing that. Ooh, not a good way to start. Number 2, something smells funny. Number 3, where's the Tylenol? Am I giving you a headache? Number 4, and to think I first wanted to date your brother. Yeah, definitely don't want to hear that from a lady on a first date. Number 5, I have a confession to make. Guys, that is never going to end the way you think that's going to end. Number 6, my dad has a suit just like that. Ladies, we don't want to hear how much we remind you of your daddy. Number 7, that man is hot. Look at him. Yeah, definitely don't be saying that on a first date, ladies. Number 8, my ex, may he rot forever. I don't necessarily agree with the sentiment, but I get it. Number 9, you're going to order that? Seriously? Yeah, questioning what we're eating, that's never a good sign of a first date. And number 10, you're how old? End quote, folks. That once again comes from the fiction book Animal Instincts by Gina Showalter, and that is today's segment of
Say what?
Is it sad that half of those reminded me of most of my first dates? Kidding. Totally kidding. But you definitely don't want to be on a first date in Virginia and run up on one of the many cryptid creatures that call the state home. And back to tell us about it tonight, folks, is our good friend Ben Miller. Glad to have you back along, Ben. Tell us about the cryptids of Virginia. What do you got, my friend?
I'm going to start our journey into the unknown with a creature that is unlike most other types that we normally discuss.
Okay, Ben, now you really have my interest piqued. This must be a very unique cryptid, as we've almost went through all 50 states, and we've covered a lot of strange creatures, my friend.
I came across this encounter from my friends over at the National Cryptid Society. Around the year 2012, a patrol officer who was working at the Yorktown refinery came across a creature that is very odd.
Now, I would like to note real quick, we are talking about a refinery here, so there's no telling what type of mutations have occurred within the genetics of the creatures around there.
He described it as being the size of a large beaver, standing about 1.5 feet tall and 3.5 feet long. It had really long shaggy brown fur that covered its body. The hair was so long that it made the creature appear not to have legs, and it obscured any facial features that it may have had. What was really odd was this creature had 2 very long tails, and it was incredibly fast.
I wouldn't say the most strange creature we've had on the show, but definitely different. The 2 tails is something we don't normally see in really any cryptid creatures, right guys?
Even as such, when it was seen running, it was said to wobble from side to side. This officer actually saw this creature on 8 different occasions, and he would encounter it in both broad daylight as well as the night. Many of the other workers reported seeing the same creature as well. Apparently this creature was seen swimming in the river that is around the refinery, as well as making its home in holes it had burrowed into the dirt near the bank. It really seems like it is a mix between a beaver, groundhog, and a rat.
In my book, that's actually a pretty plausible mix. I mean, look at the duck-billed platypus. It's a whole lot more creatures than that smashed into one. It's still not the strangest thing out there, right?
In saying that, I find it important to note that apparently chemicals used in the refinery may have gotten into the surrounding wildlife, and the officer assumed,
as Lobo says, a refined beaver. I wonder how refined indeed, my friend.
It possibly mutated one of the creatures.
Which is exactly what I said a few moments ago, so clearly a logical conclusion, a common sense conclusion, if you will. But even if that be the case, what's to not call a creature that has been mutated into something else, something different, a cryptid, right? According to science, it doesn't exist. Therefore, by definition, it would be a cryptid creature until verified by the scientific community, you know.
On various occasions, the officer tried to get pictures of the being, but he claims that it was just too fast. The patrol officer has stated that many people have reported seeing this thing as well, and in one instance it appeared only a few feet from one of the other officers. I should note that it was stated that the refinery has a nature preserve set up nearby, and the officer says he knows most of the animals that reside in there. But this creature was new to him.
And clearly also new to the majority of the people that seen this creature, right? There were numerous eyewitness accounts across different people who I would dare say don't really know each other. Of course, the cops may, but just the same, a number of eyewitnesses seeing this same creature.
With this topic, I have read recent reports of a similar sized creature, but it is more of a rounded shape in other parts of Virginia. Not much is known about this other than it has shaggy brown fur and sharp-looking teeth. Some have likened it to the creature found in the movie Critters, but I need to keep an eye on it to see if it develops into anything more than just hearsay.
Has anybody here seen the movie Critters? Go ahead and put a 1 in the chat room if you've seen that movie. Put a 2 in the chat room if you've never seen it. Put a 3 in the chat room if you've never even heard of the franchise, because it was a franchise. Critters was a really interesting horror franchise from, I believe, the 80s, maybe the 70s, but I believe the 80s. They were cute little furballs of death. They were actually ugly little creatures once they unfurled. Very deadly aliens. A movie you definitely would be into if you're into things like that. But the point is, these were not friendly type creatures. So, Ben, I look forward to the update if you get any more information on this particular creature, this critter, if you will. But let's see what you guys had to say out here. My Life DIY says, too, she has never heard of that. You know, that is actually not a surprise to me. I know a lot of pop culture that Miss My Life DIY wasn't exposed to. I expected that one. Rippin' Rabbit Hole says yes. absolutely has heard of critters worse than gremlins. He says, yeah, they were a lot worse than the gremlins. They made the gremlins look like Boy Scouts. Raider Champion with the 1.1 has definitely seen the Critters movie. Sandy B and Lobo Ohio with Prairie Fire all throwing out the 2. It was kind of a cult classic, I guess. If you didn't know, you didn't know type movie, right? Those of us that did, I'm sure, will never forget it. Maggie's Ace with the 3. Completely confused all the way around the board there. Really, really good movie, though. You've got to check it out.
Moving from one hairy cryptid to another, we find a more familiar creature said to be found in this state. This cryptid is said to be a werewolf, but I'm assuming it is a dogman.
And you guys know we have discussed dogman and werewolf across a number of different states in the Union.
The area of Henrico County has had stories of werewolf-like beings reported for hundreds of years, but all these sightings are fairly vague. The creature is said to stand between 6 and 7 feet tall, has grayish fur, and has been seen running on its hind legs, as well as on all fours. Not to mention that some have claimed to hear an eerie howling sound when the moon is full. That last part could simply be something else, though.
I mean, that's fair.
A recent sighting occurred on October of 2011 at 10 o'clock at night, and it was reported to the police, but nothing was found. To date, most assume that these stories are just an urban legend or a hoax, but I have found a sighting that may make people question that. According to the encounter, a woman was walking her pit bull in the woods, when suddenly the dog started barking at something that the owner couldn't see. Without hesitation, the dog became startled and began pulling to run away from whatever it was seeing. This normally headstrong dog kept trying to run away, all the while looking over its shoulder as if it was afraid it was being chased. A day later, the woman returned alone to the site and found massive canine-like paw prints in the mud that were very much larger than any dog. While the validity of this creature residing in this area is questionable, it is said that another dogman does make its home in the Great Dismal Swamp National Wildlife Refuge.
Now, that's interesting that there are 2 of these creatures, not just one case file in Virginia. Wouldn't you agree, JoJo? Slipping in there, says, sorry I fell asleep. No worries, glad you woke up in time, at least for the rest of the first half.
For years there were sightings of a hairy humanoid being roaming about the swamp. This thing is said to stand at around 8 feet tall, has dirty white hair covering its body, glowing yellow eyes, and a human-like face with a pronounced canine-like muzzle. Some assume it could actually be a version of the Bigfoot that has a dog-like muzzle known as the Gugly, but others feel it is simply a dogman.
That is a really good point, Ben. How would one really tell if it weren't a Bigfoot with a alteration, this time having a dog-like face? As we know, there's been many versions and alterations of Bigfoot across the country. Or could it very well be a dog-man creature opposed to a Bigfoot? Very interesting point raised there, Ben.
In 1902, a man named L. Frank Ames awoke to hearing a strange noise, and he went outside to check it out. It was then that he noticed a tall wolf-like figure with glowing yellow eyes standing not too far from him. Afraid of what might happen, he fired his pistol a few times at the being, but to no effect. Ames then tried to get his 6 hunting dogs to go after the creature, and all of them refused to move or attack. Luckily for Mr. Ames, the dogman chose to move on.
Remember that particular point. It will be important later that none of the dogs would act or move. They all absolutely flat out refused to answer their owner's commands and go into the woods after these creatures. Again, remember that point. That will come up again later.
On without trying to attack. Not long after this, another man named Henry Jordan saw the same creature standing there as well, and it just stared at the man for a while before leaving. With so many sightings, groups of hunters went out to the swamp to try to hunt the creature down, and on one occasion it is said that they were successful. However, unlike most cryptids we talk about, this entity isn't apparently the only one of its kind.
So we already knew that, as this is the second dogman we've come across so far in Virginia, but you're telling me there's a third dogman in Virginia?
A few days after the hunters had claimed to have killed the creature, a man named Edward Smith was unlucky enough to come across a not-so-passive version. Ed claimed the creature had visited his property many nights in a row, and in its wake it had killed some of his livestock and 7 of his dogs, with 2 of them being completely eaten. On that same night, he heard one of his remaining dogs howling from under the barn, and Ed went out to investigate, carrying a pistol. When he got to the barn, he found a white-haired dog man with yellow eyes trying to get a hold of his hiding dog. When it noticed Ed, it immediately sprung on top of him and started clawing at his body. Mr. Smith managed to drive the creature off by repeatedly hitting it with his pistol. He found that his weapon was unable to fire due to poor upkeep. What a time to find that out.
A bad time to find it out, but a lesson learned: always make sure that your tools are well maintained.
Not long after this, a neighbor of Ed's named Whit Walker claimed the same creature had been terrorizing his farm and livestock for a few weeks. Stories like this sprung up throughout the years, and recently a boy claimed to have woken up to see a wolf-like face with yellow eyes staring at him through his bedroom window. It was assumed the creature was standing on its back legs since the window was fairly high up. The boy ran from the room, and apparently the creature moved on.
As much as I would like to agree with Ben on this one that it's a dog man, remember lycanthropy or werewolfism runs in the familial lines. Now, I understand this is a lot of lore, right? But lycanthropy we know is a real thing where the people grow enormous amounts of hair all over their body. Now apparently it's also the belief that you're a werewolf, right? However, what if this belief isn't a belief for a particular family, right? I'm not saying that's the case. I'm saying, what if that's the case? It could very well be a family of dogmen. We don't know, but an interesting thought just the same.
Sticking with hairy cryptids, we move on to a sighting that isn't a dogman or strange mutated beaver. For years there have been sightings of a creature known as a devil monkey in Virginia, as well as other states. In some of these cases it can be ruled out as simply an escaped primate from the zoo, but the encounters in Virginia paint a different picture.
And I know for a fact that we have come across the devil monkeys a number of times before.
These creatures are said to stand between 3 and 4 feet tall, have the face of a baboon, has razor-sharp teeth and claws, it has pointed ears and a long bushy tail that is described as looking like a beaver's. What really makes this odd is that it only has 3 toes on each limb, and its hind legs resemble a kangaroo.
I've said it a number of times before, now I will say it again. I am very intrigued with the number of cryptids that have 3 toes opposed to the rest of the creatures, right?
In 1959, a couple driving to their home in Saltville had a terrifying encounter with one of these creatures. On their way home, the Boyds, along with their daughter Pauline, were driving on a mountain road when suddenly a creature leapt from the forest and latched a hold of their car and pressed his face against the glass. The creature then kept up with the speeding car, all the while trying to get at the passengers inside. The family managed to finally get away, but once home, they found a set of 3-toed, deep claw marks in their car's hood and along the body. Pauline claimed that the creature she saw had tan fur with a white patch running down its chin to its belly, its back limbs were muscular like a kangaroo, and its front arms were shorter than the hind ones. Not long after the attack, 2 nurses were driving on the same road when a similar-looking creature reportedly tore the convertible top from their car.
So this creature, whatever it may be, had to be pretty strong to tear the entire roof from the car.
Later, a search party set out to try to find this strange being, but when everyone arrived at the site of the attacks, the tracking dogs refused to go into the woods.
This is 2 cryptid cases in a row where we have heard the dogs be like, nope, ain't no way, I ain't doing it, ain't going in there after whatever that is. So whatever it was made sure that even the dogs themselves felt enough fear not to try to run and attack, but to stay put where they were.
In both encounters, everyone managed to escape harm, but this monkey is said to be responsible for the death of quite a bit of livestock, as well as family pets. Many see this creature as being highly aggressive and territorial. In 1973, a man was driving on a road in the Marion area. At the time, he had the window down and his arm was hanging outside the vehicle. He claimed that one of the devil monkeys jumped out onto the road and charged at his car. As it passed by, it took a swipe at his exposed arm and caused some pretty deep cuts. In 1990, these cryptids were seen in Smith County, and in 2010 and 2014, they were spotted in Goochland County. With so many sightings, it seems that Virginia may have a high population of devil monkeys hanging around.
Or a large population of Bigfoot creatures, or whatever they may be. There is a lot of them that seem to make Virginia their home.
It comes as no shock to anyone that Bigfoot makes its home here, as it seems to in just about every other state. Although there was an interesting sighting where it was reported that a person actually saw one holding a baby Sasquatch. That is truly a rare sighting.
And it is rare to get any kind of sighting like that. And if true, it actually would go further to prove the more civilized intelligence of the Bigfoot society, for a lack of a better term. The Bigfeetsuses, right?
Virginia is said to have a form of thunderbird flying around. In a sighting in 2013, a man was driving in New Kent County.
Now, a thunderbird, I didn't see that coming. Those normally are only around the mid and southwestern areas. Not exclusively, but majorly, right?
When he saw a massive bird standing in the middle of the road. According to the sighting, this bird's head was higher than the car, and its wings were wider than the road when it took off. As it prepared to fly, the force from the wings caused a deafening sound.
So if you are in Virginia, definitely make sure to keep your eyes to the skies and watch out for the thunderbirds or the spike-tailed beavers, or who knows what other crazy cryptids that just haven't been seen yet, as well as the numerous amount of dogmen. I think that is the most dogmen that we have found in any state of the union so far. Definitely a creepy number of cryptid creatures, guys, but we are getting down to the bottom of the hour, and we're about to have to go ahead and take a network break. Here comes the music now. So, folks, my name is Jerry Hicks, also known as the Dark Wolf, and you're listening to the DarkWolf's Den Radio Show, State of Mystery for Virginia, on Thursday, April 28th, 2022. I will see you guys on the other side with the hauntings of Virginia after these messages. Stick around. Don't touch that dial. That's right.
We gotta stoke the fires and run off the men in black. Don't touch that dial. We'll be right back.
Oh yeah, Jerry Hicks on a Thursday night. Hi everyone, it's AJ the Rippin' Rabbit. Are you enjoying tonight's State of Mystery for Virginia? I know I am. If you are, and you haven't done so already, please make sure to hop on over to our website, rippinrabbithole.com. That's RIPONRABBITHOLE.com. There you can sign up for your exclusive backstage VIP pass. It's going to give you unfiltered access down the rabbit hole to our privatized social media network. Now, it's absolutely free to sign up for. It always will be. But we do not shadow ban. We do not deplatform. It is a network based in common sense and freedom. We do not share, sell, or give away your private information, so you can feel comfortable about joining our community and our community-generated press at rippinrabbithole.com. Now, we're not the only social media network out there as alternatives to some of them today. In fact, former President Donald Trump took to his own social media network today to tweet, or I should say truth, I'm back. Not sure exactly what that means just yet. Where I guess we're going to have to just wait and see. But I can tell you, the waiting and seeing game when it comes to social media is very interesting today. As, of course, last week we talked about Elon Musk Sunday night. We were spot on in our prediction that within the next 24 to 48 hours, the deal would have been done, and that indeed it was. And I think that that has sent some sort of a ripple through the big tent media platforms as Rippin' Rabbit Hole has lost one of its community guideline strikes on YouTube. The one that actually suspended us and shut us down was supposed to be a permanent strike, and it's now just vanished from our channel. Things that make you go, Perhaps we really are in the right place at the right time. You can be in the right place at the right time tomorrow night, Friday, April 29th, starting at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central. Join me with special guest Tony and his traveling wine glass. That's right, Tony from travelersdust.com will be here tomorrow night as my special guest. And we're going to talk about where the magic meets the flame with Traveler's Dust. You will not want to miss a moment of tomorrow night's action. And open lines taking your calls for Tony and his wine glass. That's tomorrow night, April 29th. You can check the live details at rippinrabbithole.com/live for up-to-date information. Now back to Jerry Hicks and the State of Mystery for Virginia. You're listening to the Rippin' Common Sense Radio Network, home of the Freedom Flame, rippinrabbithole.com.
If you were meant to be controlled, you would have come with a remote, but you didn't. And that's why you listen to the Darkwolf's Den Show. Now, here is your host, Jerry Hicks.
That's right, I am Jerry Hicks, also known as the Dark Wolf. And welcome back to the second half of the Darkwolf's Den Radio Show for Thursday, April the 28th, 2022. Haha. So whether you're on the edge of a reality, the edge of the galaxy, or the edge of your seat, we're glad you chose us to be right there with you. Folks, tonight we are diving deep down into the dark state of mystery that is Virginia. In the first half, we went over a number of various strange cryptid creatures, and in the second half, we're going to continue the paranormal rabbit hole with the hauntings of Virginia, and of those there are also quite a few. Check this out.
The Ferry Plantation House. The Ferry Plantation House in Virginia Beach is a brick house in the old Donation Farm neighborhood that dates back to 1642, when it acted as a ferry service stop along the Lynnhaven River. From 1751 to 1828, it was rebuilt into the Walk Manor House until it burned down and was later rebuilt again through slave labor in 1830.
And this house is cram-packed with ghosts.
There are 11 known entities in the house, including a former slave named Henry, a woman named Sally who mourns her lost love, the former owner and painter Thomas Williamson, a lady in white who fell down the stairs in 1826 and broke her neck, and the souls of the 1810 shipwreck at Ferry Landing.
And notice how most of them followed our recipe of high trauma plus high emotion.
Lastly, Grace Sherwood, also known as the Witch of Pongo, was tried near here. At night, many report her silhouette floating through the skies, accompanied by moaning and the sound of chains.
So it would seem that these grounds have a particularly large amount of spirit activity within its boundaries. Something keeps trapping these spirits within for whatever reason.
The Martha Washington Inn. The Martha Washington Inn in Abingdon was built in 1832 for General Francis Preston and his family. Throughout its many years, it served as a college, a training center for Confederate troops, and a Civil War hospital.
And of course, we have run across these Civil War hospitals a number of times, and I've said a number of times, I'm surprised every inch of ground that the Civil War covered isn't absolutely and utterly haunted due to the amount of emotion and trauma involved in such a horrific event.
Staff and guests to this old inn report disembodied footsteps throughout the halls, the smell of gunpowder, and phantom voices shouting long-lost commands.
So none of this is a surprise so far. It's almost to be expected in a Civil War hospital once again.
Many have reported the full-bodied apparition of a woman staring into the distance from the top-floor window, rumored to be waiting for her long-lost love. Lastly, terrifying bloodstains appear inexplicably on the walls and floors. They're believed to be from the injured soldiers who perished here.
Those are always pretty creepy, right? The blood stains that just won't go away no matter what.
Every attempt to rid the building of the stains has been met in failure, and they seem to reappear as if by magic in the middle of the night.
Aside from being a ectoplasmic residual, I really cannot explain that particular part of any of those type of case files.
Bacon's Castle. Bacon's Castle in Surrey was built in 1665 for Arthur Allen and his family, and eventually was passed to his son, Major Arthur Allen II. In 1676, Major Allen was driven from the house by supporters of rebel Nathan Bacon, who promptly changed the name. A strange array of supernatural happenings have been reported here, including disembodied voices, spectral fireballs floating through the surrounding sky.
I got to say, I am really surprised at the amount of times that we have heard about these, quote, ghost lights, end quote, floating around the areas in which haunting activity is occurring.
And floating translucent heads that have been known to pop up in reflections and startle the unsuspecting.
That would be scary, right? Now, I gotta say, a bit of comedy there. It seems almost like prankster type ghosts to even do something like that. If you were to watch that play out in a movie scene, it would almost be funny. But to actually have that happen in real life, that would probably be pretty spooky. What do you guys think?
The most famous ghost here is that of Arthur Allen, the original owner. He's most frequently spotted gazing from various windows through the house, a sad look on his face. It's believed his spirit may be awaiting the return of his long-lost son.
I would argue that this is a caretaker ghost, just sad that he can't enjoy the home he is now having to caretake. Then again, he may be awaiting a lost love. There is quite a few of those type of stories, too.
The University of Virginia.
That's right, folks, yet another haunted university, this time the University of Virginia.
The University of Virginia in Charlottesville was founded in 1819 and is one of the most prestigious colleges in the U.S. Ironically, it's also one of the most haunted. The school is no stranger to bloodshed, as there were many recorded fights and riots in the earlier years amongst the students. This inter-school violence got even worse when it kept its doors open through the Civil War. The library is said to be haunted by two spirits, both doctors, believed to be following the books from life that were donated to the many shelves.
That definitely brings new meaning to continued education, right?
Stiff Hall was once used for dissections, and students to this day randomly report the smell of rotting flesh. Lastly, the spirit of the legendary writer Edgar Allan Poe has been seen numerous times in his old room, scribbling on a piece of paper, writing dark tales from the other side.
It's not every place that gets to claim the ghost of Edgar Allan Poe.
Crawford Road. Yorktown was founded in 1691, and the area has seen multiple battles and tragedies throughout history. In particular, one road has caught the eye of paranormal investigators everywhere. Crawford Road, which borders the official marker for the Yorktown Battlefield National Historical Park.
And like we alluded to earlier in the Civil War case file, the battlefields are one place that are highly active areas. Again, because it fits our recipe, I believe is the reason. There is a large amount of trauma and a large amount of emotion involved in any battle, if, would you not agree? If that be the case, then this would definitely leave a very strong marker impact either on the universe itself as far as the fabric of the universe, or perhaps in a more spiritual tone holding the ghosts to the area. That is still yet undetermined, but one thing that is for sure is the majority of battlefields that we have found, including ones near my own self, are very haunted.
Those brave enough to travel this dark stretch at night report a host of otherworldly experiences, including phantom knocks and scrapes on cars, handprints on windows, and vehicles going dead and refusing to start.
Again, I would expect a place with that level of emotional impact surrounding it to have a definite effect on the electricity in that area.
A woman in white is commonly seen on the bridge, and it's rumored she killed herself to avoid an unwanted marriage. Lastly, many have reported the sounds of full-scale battle in the middle of the night, accompanied by the smell of gunpowder and otherworldly flashes in the sky.
It sounds like on this battlefield, the war particularly may not have ended at all.
Rosewell. The Rosewell Plantation in Gloucester County was built in 1725 and was called home by the Page family for more than a century through multiple generations, until it burned to the ground in 1916 from a fire that is thought to have started in the southwest sitting or dining room. The spirits of the Page family are believed to remain, and those brave enough to explore this dark and ruined abode report unexplainable cold spots on hot days, disembodied voices talking throughout the halls, and otherworldly singing coming from the surrounding fields.
There's actually, though, something very interesting about this particular singing. I've always said I wouldn't mind some free music, right? However, this might not be the song that I would want to hear. Check this out.
Those who hear the singing report feeling unwelcomed and frightened. The most famous and commonly experienced apparition here is said to be that of an unknown woman seen walking silently down the front staircase every night.
I find it fascinating that those who hear this particular singing feel unwelcomed and frightened. It would definitely, I was going to say it would definitely be due to the frequency at which this song is being portrayed. Whatever frequency that would be, I would be really, really, really intrigued to know more about this case file. If anybody could find more about this particular song and frequency, that would be absolutely fascinating to me.
The Virginia State Capitol Building. The Virginia State Capitol Building in Richmond was built in 1785 and is the site of one of the bloodiest disasters a United States Capitol building has ever seen. In 1870, hundreds gathered in the courtroom to decide Richmond's fate after the Civil War. The room was overcrowded and far past the recommended maximum capacity. This caused the floor to completely give away, collapsing and killing 62 people while injuring 251 more.
So given the court case going on, it was already very highly emotionally charged of an event anyway, and then add on top of that the trauma involved already with the Civil War and the people feeling in that particular room, it completely fits our haunting recipe of high trauma plus high emotion.
Local legend says that at night, moans and cries from the dead are still heard from miles around. Many have reported extreme feelings of terror and sadness, and multiple witnesses have crossed paths with lost and injured-looking ghosts, even causing several to call the local authorities.
And of course, every time the local authorities are called, this creates yet another paper trail of a ghostly encounter.
Monticello. Monticello in Charlottesville was built in 1772 and was home to none other than founding father and former President Thomas Jefferson. Throughout the years, many have reported a wide variety of paranormal happenings on the grounds, including...
Fun fact, in high school I had to do a report on Thomas Jefferson.
Including doors opening and closing on their own, the feeling of someone standing close in empty rooms, and objects moving by themselves, even floating through the air. Though the paranormal occurrences are frequent, all who have encountered them say they don't feel threatened in the least. This is probably because they're believed to be the work of Thomas Jefferson himself, whose spirit has been sighted strolling the grounds on numerous occasions, whistling loudly, a satisfied look on his face.
Does anybody know what this case file has all the hallmarks of? What classification of ghost this has the hallmarks of? If you said the caretaker ghost, you are absolutely correct. It would seem to me that the open and closing of doors, the moving of things, would just be the ghost of Thomas Jefferson checking the entire building, make sure everything is good to go, and putting things back where they, quote, should be, end quote, according to him. At least that is this host's opinion.
Swana Noah. Swana Noah in Afton was built in 1912 and designed in the style of an Italian Renaissance villa by James Henry Dooley. For many years, visitors to this mysterious mansion have reported a wide range of happenings, including strange fogs drifting across the grounds at night, light switches flicking from off to on by themselves, and odd electrical disturbances, such as interference during phone calls and mobile phones and cameras going dead. The most commonly cited apparition here is that of Sally, the wife of Mr. Dooley. She's been seen in various places, but most often at the edge of the yard, staring into the distance. It's believed she's waiting for her beloved Henry's return.
You know, a thought just occurred to me that perhaps the electrical issues, let alone that the spirits are using the electrical energy, but perhaps the electrical issues are also just being caused by the mere negative emotional impact that has been put into the area. We know emotion and consciousness drives reality. Perhaps the deeper the negative emotion, the more negative electrical effects, but that's just a theory. That's right, folks. But what do you guys think about the state of Virginia? From the interesting cryptid creatures to the spooky hauntings of Virginia, do you think it is perhaps a state of mystery, or do you think we're barking up the wrong tree? In the end, folks, all you can do is look at the evidence, apply a little common sense, and you be the judge. We got to close it out. That's right, that's it for this episode of the DarkWolf's Den Radio Show for Thursday, April the 28th, 2022. So whether you're on the edge of a reality, the edge of the galaxy, or the edge of your seat, we're glad you chose us to be right there with you. Folks, the den may be closing, but don't you worry, the weekend fun has only just begun. Make sure you come back tomorrow, Friday, April 29th, 2022, 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central, as AJ the Rippin' Rabbit takes back to the airwaves with an all-new episode of the Rippin' Rabbit Hole Live Show. This is going to be a wild card episode. It is a toss-up between a special guest that may be able to confirm before the time runs out, or a special episode involving you, the listener. Either way, it's going to be a load of fun, that I can guarantee. That is tomorrow, Friday, April 29th, 2022, 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central. Then on Saturday, April 30th, 2022, 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central. He has special guest author Wayne Beachy will be joining him. Mr. Beachy has a great epiphany. Oh no, wait, he wrote the book, A Great Epiphany, after having a great epiphany. Either way, he will be here to discuss that book on Saturday, April 30th, 2022, with a special guest, his editor, Miss Heather Conroy. I cannot wait for that show myself, as you guys may realize you know Miss Heather Conroy. If not, then you will, and it will be a pleasure, I'm sure, to meet her on Saturday, April 30th, 2022, 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central. Then on Sunday is the most fun you can have on radio. That's right, folks. Beat Eugene is back. And this is a night of trivia, fun, puzzles, all the fun you can have on radio. and still be legal. That's right. Can you beat Eugene, the great wizard? Or are you not enough to make it to the podium? Only you can find out on Sunday, May 1st, 2022, 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central. I'm doing better, guys. I got the correct month this time, I hope. Then on May 3rd, 2022, 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central, exclusively in the Backstage 24/7 Lounge on the RippinRabbitHole.com, home of the Freedom Flame. We will be having Tuesday night videos hosted by your host, Raider Champion, as he goes through the 70s this time. It's I Love the 70s, and the different videos and songs that made the 70s what it truly was. Some of your favorites, I'm sure, if you're from that generation. If not, perhaps you have the knowledge it takes to win the Tuesday night videos. And if you do, make sure you join us on Tuesday, May 3rd. Yeah, I lost month again, didn't I? May 3rd, 2022, 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central, as Mr. Eric host a amazing game show that you do not want to miss, and that's all available on the RippinRabbitHole.com. That is RippinRabbitHole.com. Over there, you're gonna find the 24/7 Backstage Lounge, of course, where the game is played. Make sure you sign up for your VIP pass. It's going to get you access to the entire site. It's always free and always will be. And this is going to get you access to not only the Backstage Lounge, but a multitude of other fun things that we have, like the Down the Rabbit Hole section, our exclusive privatized social media, where we don't shadow ban, we don't pull those nasty tricks like Facebook, YouTube, and the other platforms. Though that seems to be changing. Congratulations to us here at the Rippin' Rabbit Hole, and to AJ for losing that strike that was unjust to begin with. But I'm glad YouTube has dropped that on us. That has been very kind of them. The tides, my friends, do seem to be turning, and they're always turning towards the RippinRabbitHole.com, and make sure you hop on over there every chance you get. You can also stay up to date with our live schedule as it changes throughout the weekend at times, like this special guest situation. Or if you want to know what's coming up, you can always keep up with it at the on-air live section on the RippinRabbitHole.com. With that said, folks, on behalf of AJ, the Rippin' Rabbit, Chick Mandela Effect, Michael Musco, Waldhouse, everyone involved with Rippin' Common Sense Radio Network, as well as Tom Baillies and Red Shed Studios for this incredible music. My name's Jerry Hicks, also known as the Dark Wolf, and you've been listening to the DarkWolf's Den Radio Show, State of Mystery series for Virginia, exclusively on Rippin' Common Sense Radio Network, the home of the Freedom Flame, RippinRabbitHole.com. Until next we meet, my friends, remember, stay awake, but dare to dream. Good night, everybody. Yeah, that's right. We've kicked the weekend off right, folks. I hope you guys have an incredible rest of your weekend, hanging out with AJ the Rippin' Rabbit. Looking forward to TNV. And beat Eugene this weekend, guys. Can you beat Eugene? I can't.
What a widow, a peaceful spider. When the glass is clean, she's a sneaky hider. Hide the lies and the alibis. Oh, what a sinner. Is it in her?
That's a good question, man, Danny Ma. Maybe we convince AJ to change Eugene's name to Brandon, right?
What's the truth in this riddle? Is love really just this simple? I can't seem to find my way in this world that never never stays. What a widow, a peaceful spider. When the glass is clean, she's a sneaky hider. Hide the lies and the alibis. What a sinner is it in her?
Am I the only one that can't get enough of this song? Check Mandela Effect, ladies and gentlemen, with Michael Musco on the background tunes.
Is this real? Just illusion? I'm lost in the wonderland of confusion. I'm lost in a wonderland of confusion. Is this real or just illusion? Manifestation or a dark delusion? Is this real or just illusion? I'm lost in a wonderland of confusion.
I'm sure you guys can think of at least one person that we all hear about pretty frequently that possibly is lost in a wonderland of confusion. I'm not mentioning any names. You can take that however you'd like. See you guys next Wednesday. Bye, guys.